Is technology a neutral tool? Why or why not? And why is it critical that we assess technology by its outcomes rather than by the intentions of its creators? So I thought this was a good question. Given that little bit of extra context and the fact that we all interact with, use, develop technology every day. But is technology neutral? And this is the part where y'all get to talk and I stop talking.
I want to say no. Technology is not neutral just because humans create it and we possess a lot of implicit bias. Even it's unintentional. So even what's that quote? It's like the path to hell is paved with good intentions. Things like that. Like I think it's made with the best intentions, but there's still bias there.
So I'll think about, I mean, it makes me think of a few different ways, right? So, I mean, like historically, I think of like guns being technology. And that's the big difference, right, between like Native Americans and Europeans. And I mean, I guess that's just like which cultures like want to develop that technology, right? So I mean, they put in the work to have those tools. So that's kind of one thought. Another thought is like infrastructure's neutral, right? Like, I mean, the internet's technology, our roads, and I guess it's kind of comes down to who's creating the technology, who's designing the technology, where again, I guess they're gonna have some of those coded biases, or I mean, they're gonna do what's good for them, right? They might build a highway through your neighborhood, right? But it's gonna help people get to town. And I guess the other thought is also like social media, right? Like the negative effects of it are kind of optional, right? Like you could not do it. Um, so maybe the people that are making it more addictive, they like, I'm not even gonna do that drug. And I saw Tiffany had her hand up.
Tiffany, yeah.
Yeah, I'll hop in. So I think that again, to Stephanie's point, yes, the saying that the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and also to CJ's point is that it kind of depends on where we are to what the quote unquote technology is. So with that, I think that technology, of course, can be neutral, but it's not, because it comes down to a haves and a have not situation. Like again, if we think of technology today as data and the internet, well, who has all of that? Like it's not accessible to everyone. So even with the example of to say guns, as it comes to the colonizers versus the Native Americans, if we think about that, well, who had hold of the technology, so that therefore who had the advantage, right? So in that respect, I'll say that no, technology is not a neutral tool, because there's always a situation of the haves or the have not, and what the intent of the use of that technology is for.
That's good stuff, Tiffany. I actually have a question for you for the next slide if we get to it. But other thoughts, Dora?
Yes, I completely agree with you, Tiffany. And to that point of like accessibility, I think it's critical to assess the outcomes of technology, because at the end of the day, no matter how advanced we are as a race or society, we're still communal, and everything affects another person, another entity, another environment. And so to that point, I think CJ, you made it of like social media usage. Like as somebody who I take a lot of social media breaks, the I guess the standard of social media is still implicit, or like it's still applied to me regardless of me removing myself from that. And so I do think, because we are a communal, like we're a communal people, the intentions never matter. How it affects us is always going to matter.
Daria. Thank you, Zora.
Yeah, this is a really thought-provoking question, so thank you for raising it. As I think about neutrality, what would be necessary is that assumptions aren't being made and biases aren't baked in. And I think, technology is a man-made invention, and so therefore inherent in it is a host of assumptions and biases. So I can't see how the two could be coincident. Neutrality with the existence of assumptions and biases doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, that's super important. I mean, like part of like the engineering problem solving process. Like I remember, if I don't remember anything from statics, I had to write down my assumptions. If I don't remember much from physics, I always remember I had to write my assumptions. So whether the assumptions were a frictionless surface, or that everyone had access to this technology, or everyone wanted to have to use this technology. Those are assumptions, right? And a lot of times, especially as engineers, our training does not necessarily predispose us to think about the concept, like the social context and historical context or assumptions that we are applying.